Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for the stay.
Welcome to Worse Than You with Mo Fry-Pasek. I'm Mo, and every week I'm asking today's most captivating artists how they got their acts together. This show is not about their best or most famous work. It's about the work that means the most to them, their creative process, and why they make their art. This week's guest is a Chicago-raised, Los Angeles-based stand-up comedian, writer, and actor. You know him from projects like Fire Island, which he wrote and starred in, Loot, and Bravo's Love Hotel, which I've just been watching, having the time of my life. He just wrapped up the international tour for his stand-up show, Rude Little Pig, and you can hear him every week on the SmartList podcast, Bad Dates. Please welcome to the pod, one of my nearest and dearest to my heart, Joel Kim Booster. Ready, set, show!
Okay, I've actually changed my answer to the first question already. Just like listening to your intro, I've changed it. Yeah.
Okay, I support you. I fully support you. Off to the races. Let's go. What is it?
I would say like a very meaningful early creative work was Joel Kim Booster Will Die Alone, which also co-starred you.
Oh my gosh, got chills.
For those of you who don't know.
Too long didn't read for our listeners, yes.
I did my first solo show back in 2016, and it was very heavily inspired by like people like Josh Sharp and like people that I'd seen do solo shows. But like it was basically my first hour of stand-up, or roughly an hour of stand-up, but interlaced between Carly Rae Jepsen songs. And Mo was Carly Rae Jepsen.
Carly was Carly. I was Carly.
Yeah, you were Carly.
I channeled.
And it was like the first time I'd ever like self-actualized and believed I could do an hour of stand-up. And it was also me trying to do it slightly differently. And like in a way, it was like kind of a cheat too, because I don't know that I had enough material yet for a full hour. And so I really just wanted to like figure out a way to do a solo show, but also have it not just be an hour stand up, and also have it be something like thematically that I was really feeling in that moment. Because as you'll recall, I was heartbroken for a year over a guy that I dated for about 2.5, 3 months.
Okay, but it was emotionally intense.
It was emotionally intense. And I will say, like, that's why I chose Carly, because I think like I was living sort of my first adolescent like infatuation, like feelings of love, I think. And it was so silly in retrospect, and I was almost so embarrassed by how I felt in retrospect. And there was something about Carly Rae Jepsen's, especially emotion, that like this girl like loved to be in love, loved to have a crush. And there was something a little adolescent about sort of where she was coming from, I think.
She also never shamed herself for pining.
No, that's exactly it. That's what I was actually trying to say. That was put so beautifully. Yes, she never shamed herself for pining. She was never like embarrassed to pine. And I think like that's what, up until like around that time, like I'd never been in a relationship. I'd never dated anyone more than 3 months. And I think there was like something really magical about like her imagination and like the way she would live out her crushes and the people she was pining after in a really like full realized way. And that was how I was feeling in that moment. And so I really just wanted to like, I don't know, interlace my thoughts and feelings at that time with hers. And, you know, I don't know that it's necessarily something I connect to now, but what really gave me a lot of confidence in that moment and really shaped where I went next, I think, as a stand-up and as a writer and as honestly, as like a person who pines, you know, and a person who had a lot of crushes.
God, we could talk about pining for a million years, because it is such a beautiful, I don't want to take its power away by saying like trauma response, but like it is so protective when love has not been consistently safe, whether or not that's experiential or just being queer, gay, whatever it is. Like pining is such a beautiful way to still find love in your life without the danger of it actually happening and you getting harmed.
Without the vulnerability, yeah.
Yes. And so I think it's beautiful. And I do love, like, in Call Me Maybe, at the end of the video, it's like this guy who she's like having this whole dream fantasy life with. It's like he's gay at the end of it. And it's like, we didn't sing that. We sang like Run Away With Me and one of the more beautiful things of it. But it could be like, but it was that thing of like self-aware, like you're saying, where she's still feeling all the feelings. But she's like, he's unavailable.
She really lived between Call Me Maybe and a lot of emotion too. I think like at that point in my life, I really lived and luxuriated in those first like month or so when you have a crush, when you are pining after somebody. And then it sort of, again, like fizzles out because you find out at the end of the music video that he's gay. You know, but like it was like she was living in those first few moments when you're like texting with someone and you don't know where it's going, but you know you want it to go somewhere, but you don't know if they feel the same way. And like that excitement of that first month, really. And that's where she lived in that song, and then in many songs on Emotion too. And that's what I think I really vibed with, is because I was constantly in a state at that point in my life of living through that cycle of meeting someone and then like living out a full fantasy of what life we would lead together, and then having it like all come crashing down. And not always because I was being rejected, but like oftentimes I would lose interest really quickly because they didn't live up to the fantasy that I was crafting in my head. And then as soon as it didn't match the fantasy, I was like, well, I'm out. And that's like the cycle that I was living through and going through a lot at that point in my life. And it's so funny to think back almost 10 years ago to that show.
I know, that's so, I can't think
gross.
Of how it's,
but like,
I still have those bangs. I still have the Carly bangs.
Yeah. But like, it's just changed so much for me. And I think like, I just like, you know, I'm about to get fucking married. And
that's so special.
It's just crazy. And so, but yeah, I think like that show was really like a distillation of that moment in time for me. And it was like me sort of like stepping in to like my, like, I it was the first time I believed that like I had something to say that was worth asking a bunch of people to come and sit and watch me for a full hour.
Well, it wasn't even just a bunch of people, because what I loved about that is, one, it was so emotional. The through line was just like, I've been broken up with, I'm heartbroken, and there wasn't judgment. But it was also like, you are such a romantic person. Like, you just are at your core so deeply romantic. So it was hard because you would go on dates and you were at the time like understanding the value if someone was just a hookup. But it's like at the core of each experience was a desire for it to be romantic. And like, do you know what I mean? Like you had that of wistfulness, like, and it was so beautiful and vulnerable. And then you literally, to promote this, you went on Conan and did a set and like spoke about, you know what I mean? Like it was such courage. And I don't even know if you see it as courage, but it's like, it was early days. None of our friend group was like doing their specials or on Conan promoting their specials. It was a step of vulnerability on so many different planes of like, okay, I'm like, I'm a gay Asian man. That visibility is like, now we have a much more visibility, but that wasn't visibility. Okay, now I'm being vulnerable emotionally within the gay community when it's like maybe not cool to be a little bit more like romantic at the time. And it was so many levels.
Well, and it's so funny because like after that show, it really excised a lot of the emotion, ironically, the emotion that I was feeling in that
B-side.
moment. And the thing is like from like after that point, I would say from like 2017 on until I met John Michael, my fiance, I really was like cured after that show. Like I didn't really pine intensely after many people after
there
that.
Was never, at least throughout like our friendship updates, there was never a situation like that again.
Yeah, I certainly never anyone that I felt important enough to bring up to you. You know, like
there was never.
Maybe there was like one guy when I first moved to LA that I was like sort of into, but like that fizzled out pretty quickly. And like, I don't know. Yeah, it was just like I was not interested in in falling in love at that point in my time because of that breakup, I got really hot. And so
the way you started blending chicken.
I really, and like, maybe it wasn't coming from the healthiest place when I got hot, but like,
whatever.
It did, like, or at least the start of that journey was maybe not the healthiest because it was like full revenge body mode. I was like, I'm just going to like throw all of my attention and my energy into this one area of my life because I finally had money to do that too. Like, that's a huge part of it that we don't talk about in terms of like fitness and like looking a certain way, is that it's such an economic thing. Like, I never had the money to look like I do now, you know, like
to buy the food, to have the trainer,
to have the trainer, to have the gym membership, buying the food was a huge part of it. Eating well, you know, like all of that stuff was just like not available to me until I started to become successful. And I was really living my like wild single fantasy from like 2017 to 2021.
Which is fun.
Yeah, no, I had a fucking blast, and I self-actualized a lot in that time, and it made me ready for a relationship.
I would also argue that, like, and I want to go back to like the origin of the piece with Carly, but I would argue that the reason you didn't have that was because you got to see how your romance can be put into your art. Like, all of a sudden you were working on literally, you know, Pride and Punishment, like, or Pride and
Punishment.
Prejudice.
I love that.
Pride and Punishment. My brain was doing it. But you were literally working on a very romantic thing, right? Because your work had shown itself to support your romance. And so I feel like that is so clear to me that you didn't have that because that outlet was fulfilled and that beauty and that pining was fulfilled through your work.
Yeah. And I think like too, actually, it's so funny because around the time that year when I did that show and when I was doing Conan, I remember actually the day I found out I was going to do Conan, Max Witter DM'd me and asked me if I wanted to go to Fire Island, if I'd ever been, and I hadn't yet. And
I'm gonna cry.
and that summer was also the first year that I went to Fire Island with Bowen and Matt and like everybody and experienced that for the first time. And like that was the genesis of a lot of like, you know, complicated feelings about myself and about my body and where I stood and like all of these things that like eventually set me off on this journey where I really got over a lot of that neuroses about being Asian in the gay community and like my sexual viability and like what realizing what the currency was in our community and deciding as best as I could to like opt out of like caring a lot about it. You know, over those first couple of summers, it was difficult because I felt often really bad on that island in a way I eventually wrote about. But yeah, that summer changed a lot for me, I think, like between this show and Conan and going to Fire Island and like all of these things. I got like Billy on the Street later that year. You know, it was just like,
I remember that.
Yeah, it was like a really huge year. 2016 was a crazy year for me. I mean, a lot's happened in 2016, darling. But yeah, it was a big year for the country, and it was a big year for me.
It was, because I also think to that point, it you had been so like Chicago stand-up. It's like you are a musical theater, like, you know, conservatory Millikan girl. You know what I mean? Like you are an actor. And so like for you to get to weave in a little bit more theater in that way was also felt like huge. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that show really was me like combining this my innate like love of theatricality with the stand-up, the craft that I had learned to do really traditionally, I would say. And it was interesting because I just started seeing people like Josh and Aaron do their thing, Cole do their thing, Bridget Everett do her thing. And I was like, oh, like comedy doesn't have to look exactly like I was always told it had to look in Chicago. And then starting out in New York, you know, people were very much like, this is what it looks like. This is the path.
So regimented.
This is what you have to do.
Crazy.
And like, and the thing is like, I very much bought into that. And I don't necessarily think I wasn't completely disconnected from that. Like in many ways, my rise as a stand-up was very traditional and very conventional. I was a new face at JFL. I did all of those things. I was doing late night sets. I was going to clubs. I was touring, you know, but like I worked really hard when I left Chicago to exercise like the theater from myself, you know, because I was like, oh, like I had to make a choice when I left Chicago, and leaving Chicago was a decision I made, choosing stand-up over theater.
It was like a conscious,
it was a conscious thing because like when I started doing stand up in Chicago, I was like deeply enmeshed in the Chicago theater scene too, the storefront theater scene. And that's where most of my friends were. That was my artistic community. And I had a really hard time connecting with the stand-up community in Chicago because you have to devote a lot of social energy to that scene to be well received and to find success even. There. Yeah. And like to get sets. And I didn't have the bandwidth. And I was like, I can't have like one foot in each world if I really want to push myself and make this happen. And stand up was just a lot more artistically interesting to me at that point, and still is, I think. And I was like, let's go for it. And I moved to New York. I went to New York in like, I want to say August, did a week of shows. I probably did like 6 shows in a week or something like that, just random bar shows. And I came back and I asked to be transferred to New York like that week, and like 2 weeks later I moved to New York, and it was crazy. It was like the biggest, scariest thing I've ever done, but I'm so glad that I did.
The new McCrispy Strip is here. Dip approved by ketchup, tangy barbecue, honey mustard, Sprite, McFlurry, Big Mac sauce, double dipped in buffalo and ranch, more ranch, and creamy chili McCrispy Strip Dip. Now at McDonald's. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
This episode is brought to you by San Pellegrino. A meal isn't just about what's on your plate. It's about what you bring to the table. San Pellegrino believes the table is where the best of life happens. That's what makes gathering around it so rich and rewarding. And with their unique, sparkling natural mineral water, San Pellegrino brings its best so you could bring yours.
When it comes to like Clay on the Mound and we're talking process and you're saying how much it did for you, how much was like consciously going in of like, you know what, I'm going to make this break up into art. You know what, I want to do something with this album. Like, was it specific? Like you wanted it to do that thing, or it ended up doing it?
I think I sort of worked backwards a little bit. I knew what I wanted the show to feel like and what I wanted people to feel while watching the show. And I knew I wanted to create a sense of theatricality that sort of framed my stand-up, my very traditional stand-up, observational humor stand-up. And I don't know that I necessarily was like thinking too deeply about like what it all meant until I think we were in it, you know? I mean, that show really never left the mound, you know? Like, I think if I continued to do
That's going to make me cry. That's so, like, vulnerable and beautiful.
I think if I had continued to work on it, it could have been something bigger and maybe cleaner. This piece of hair is going to drive me nuts, and it's impossible.
Do you know
to
what?
fix.
Calyx, though, it's like people pay so much money to have that sort of spring and body.
Yeah, it's true.
I actually do have a product if you want one, though. It's really good.
Okay, good to know. I'm going to get it repermed in a second, so it'll be even crazier. But yeah, no, I think like I sort of was like, I wanted it to be theatrical. Let's add music. What's a music thing that I connect to right now? What am I listening to right now? Well, Carly Rae Jepsen, Your Type. Your Type was like such a like, oh my God, this song is everything I'm dealing with right now, you know? And, you know, that was wrapped up in a lot of like work I had to do on myself internally about, you know, the racial politics in the gay community too. Like, I'm not anyone's type because I'm Asian. And like that felt really present and really heavy to me at that moment.
Also, I feel like there's some erasure. And maybe I'm just not talking to the kids enough. There was on almost all these profiles at that time, it was no fats, no femmes, no Asians.
Yep. No, and it was, I talk about this a lot actually, like in college and in high school, I had no like self-confidence issues. I was like, I'm hot. I was like a twink with a Justin Bieber haircut, but I was like I'm hot. I was hooking up coveted. With guys. Yeah, no, I was like, I'm a prize to be won. And then I moved to Chicago in 2010, got an iPhone, I think in 2011. And downloaded Grindr for the first time. And it was the first time I had seen like no Asians, not into rice or beans, not no fats, no femmes, no Asians. And it was very prevalent at that moment in time. Like it was crazy. Like I don't think people who are on those apps now understand, because a lot of that is, it's just like, it's behind the curtain. It still exists, certainly. Of course, but like no one is saying outright that they don't want like an Asian guy anymore. I will say, I think they've replaced the term now. The code is looking for someone all-American. And it's like, what does that
so
mean,
MAGA
sir?
coded? I hate that.
It's really, but like in 2011, right when I was in Chicago looking at those apps, like was really the first time I like learned that I was like, oh, I should feel bad about this. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I should feel bad about myself. Like, and it took a long time to really unlearn that and like feel good about myself.
It makes you furious. It makes you furious, right? Because it's like, it's that inner child thing where it's like, if you saw someone say to a child, like, hey, you're not worth something, it's like you'd murder that person. And then to know that that vulnerable person is being told they have no value when they just love themselves, it's like, fuck you, burn it all to the ground. Like, what? It's awful.
Yeah. So, that show was really therapeutic. And I think like a lot of my stand-up, honestly, because I've talked about this before, but like the person that I built myself up to be on stage, that stand-up persona of like when I started like being like, I'm hot and like all of this stuff is like, I didn't believe that I reverse engineered self-confidence by saying it and like pretending to have it on stage, and then slowly but surely it like sort of came true. And I will say, like in those early days when I was like going out on stage and being like, I'm hot, I'm the hot comedian, it was funny to people because I don't think they really bought it. Like I think like people were like laughing a little bit at the idea that I thought that about myself. And then they weren't laughing so much at it. And I think it got really like, I'm still haunted by the idea that I'm a comedian who goes out on stage and talks about how hot I am, because I haven't done that. I don't think I did that like in my Netflix special even, like, and certainly don't talk about it now in the current hour that I'm touring, because like it's just true now and it's not interesting, like I think it was like,
I hear you.
It was an interesting area
adversity.
back when we weren't having the conversations about Asian men and their and desirability politics that we've had over the last decade. And I think like,
so you're not an underdog in any way.
Has changed. Yeah, no, I think not as much anymore. And I certainly don't want to frame and present myself that way anymore. But like, again, like it's just not like artistically or comedically interesting to talk about being hot anymore, because like people buy it now. And like, and I feel bad that people think that is still sort of like what I'm doing when it's not. Like it's a huge misunderstanding.
Well, I push back on it a little because I know that one, it's like I think like sure, anybody's ego when it comes to looks or whatever, but your being funny is a priority for you over them believing whether so it's like that's why it makes me laugh, because you're like, I can affirm to anyone listening, it's not like that, like you need them to think you're hot or you didn't think you were hot enough. It's like you need them to laugh. At least, so I used to get a lot of notes about talking about looks on stage, because there was one joke I had in particular where I was like, I think I said, yeah, like I've slept with women, but I'm not gay because I'm really pretty and so are they. And it's like, it's a funny joke. It's about toxic sort of like identity and like
it's a character piece almost.
It's a character.
Like it's like, yeah, we're not those people. That's not what we actually believe. But it's funny to say because it's a funny like premise.
And it's also like the male gaze of like hot women like being lesbians are somehow not gay. It's for them or something. So there's so many things. But I got so many notes about people are uncomfortable laughing at you knowing you're pretty, and I was like, okay, well, I'm knowing I'm pretty. It's like a whole joke, but people like don't want you to know something good about yourself if you're a comedian. So I do think that's maybe where the no laugh comes. I'm loving this, Calix, so much.
It's like every time I try to fix it
crazy.
It becomes more prominent.
You made it the worst it's possibly been. But do you know what I mean? Where it's like people don't want you to win a little bit, and then you have to earn sort of like, here's why I'm sympathetic. And then I get why you had to amp up to be like, I'm the hottest person alive, because then it's a full character.
Also, like, I think like at the time, like, again, we weren't necessarily, the cultural conversation was not solidified around like, Henry Goulding wasn't a thing yet,
Yes.
And so like, we weren't thinking like Asian men are hot in general. Like that was not like something that was like a part of the conversation around Asian men in general. And so many of the Asian comedians that I was seeing straight, there weren't a lot of gay ones yet, but like, it was just like, it was talking about how undateable they were and like how hard it was for them to get dates and sex, and like women weren't paying attention to that. And I was like, okay, everybody's talking about that. It felt more interesting creatively at that moment to just go the other way. Because I was also doing that in Chicago and early in New York, because that was like the reality that I was living. It was difficult to get dates and it was difficult to find sex. But like, it just wasn't interesting to talk about because that's what everybody was talking about.
Yeah.
Asian or not, really. Like it just, what you weren't seeing a lot of like confident, like it was like an era of like people who were like, I'm depressed and I'm, unwantable and all these things. And like, I don't know, I just wasn't seeing a lot of people that were like owning that part of their power in a comedic way. And so it felt really interesting to me in that moment. And of course, now we've like, I think in the TikTok era and in the, era we're living in stand up, there's a lot of hot comedians.
Oh my God, they're all hot. It's almost
and there's a lot of comedians that talk about it. And I, and that's why I sort
Advocacy.
of let go of it, because it was just like, again, it just like the conversation shifted and you want to stay a little bit ahead of the conversation as a stand up. And so I was like, okay, time to let this go. Like I don't need to, it just wasn't rife for me creatively anymore.
And you're just such a smart writer that it's like you do see people looking at you on stage and you don't seem sympathetic if you're talking about how hard something is and you look so handsome. It's like just like from a writer's perspective, it's like you're seeing the character and like you're seeing how people would feel for this person. And I think that's brilliant of you because it does lean to like, it just highlights to me how much you love this craft and how much it's a part of you, but also what you want to serve.
Well, and I think too, like people get confused a lot because I'm still very confident. I still own my confidence on stage to this day. Like I come out and I'm in control. I'm the one in power. And like, yes, I need the audience on my side, but like, I'm never going to let them feel like they have one up on me. And the thing is like, I think a lot of people associate that and connect that to like a big ego or he's full of himself or something like that. And that's not true either. No. I don't think. Like I can be confident and have like a reasonable sized ego about it, And I think like it's actually like there are people that are really, really turned off by my sense of confidence, I think, because they think they don't want to see somebody who's like, who
doesn't need your
maybe
approval.
They don't believe earns it, or like, they think it's like outsized to like what I'm actually giving. And like, and in some ways it is, because like you have to buy your own bullshit. You have to sort of like create something that is like you can believe in too on stage. And I don't know. I think like there are people who react really negatively, I think, to it.
How so? Like just judgment or talking about you?
I think it's like, oh, he thinks he's all that. He thinks he's the shit, but he's not really that great. And it's like, okay, you can feel like good and confident on stage, and it's not an indictment on like your sense of self-worth being outsized to what you're actually presenting. I don't know. It's a frustrating thing. But it's also like, fine. I'm like, this is all fine.
All of it's fine. It's life. I do think it's interesting to the point of like, you're having to dance with perception and also wanting to express your feelings. And then you're, as a writer, running up against personal judgments. And then it's like, oh, do I have to figure out what you're feeling? Like,
well, it's hard in this era that we're currently living in because everybody is just consuming you through bits and bobs of like 3-minute stand-up clips on TikTok, 3-minute podcast interview clips, little bits and pieces that no one's listening to the full podcast. They're watching the preview clip online and then making their judgment based on that. Yeah. And so I think like if you only consumed what I'm doing based on what Netflix thinks is a funny clip to pull from my special,
Shudder.
Then I'm like, yeah, I guess like if you are only working with that context of like whatever podcast clip I've been on and like said some stupid shit, like, yeah, I guess I would be annoyed with me too. But I just feel like, and this is something I struggled with in the last couple of years as we've lived through this era, is that I'm like, oh my God, like my hour right now is so different than what I think people would assume it is based on their assumptions, based on these like little clips that they have made their judgments about me on. And so it's one of the reasons why I still really enjoy doing stand-up, even though it's not necessarily paying my bills anymore, is because like I want that control. I want to be able to control the narrative about like who I am and like what I am and like the perception of who I am. And like I do think that like there are people who've come to the show and have been like, oh, this is not what I expected. This is a little surprising. And like, I like that, like
you like proving them wrong a little bit.
Yeah. I like proving them wrong. I like surprising people. I mean, like the essence of comedy and stand-up comedy, especially, is like the surprise, like you laugh because you are surprised by the precision of an observation that is an unspoken truth.
Yes. And where they
You
take
know,
us
like
with that.
is, there's like an element of truth to it, but you're surprised by how it's presented or the way in which it's presented as a comedic thought. And like, that's why you laugh. And so like, I think I always want whatever show I'm currently working on as a stand-up to be slightly ahead of whatever I think the perception of me as a stand-up is.
Which takes such a level of like ego drop at the same time as having ego so you can respond to it and like be aware of it, but wonder if it's your projections or how people are actually receiving you. Like that's so much mental work. And also to your point of like the social media or a little bit, what does piss me off though about you having to dance with that is like, to me, that's like if every makeup artist in the world, when they're doing their contour and they have like crazy lines and weird color powders and weird color correctors, that picture is gone out to the world and says, this is what's going on. Because that is a snippet of them in the process. Like that is a partial, there's no context. You don't see what they were going for. You don't see what it ends up as. And so then when people have no ability to be like, perhaps there's more to this person, I'm like, grow up. Grow up. You see one clip of a comedian online and you think this is it. You think that's the contour. That's their makeup.
Yeah.
Bitch, have a little imagination. You know what I mean? I admire you taking that data because I get furious at it.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that I'm trying to like be less aware of actually. Like I haven't name searched and like, listen, I'm going to be honest. Like, yeah, I vanity search my name on Twitter because if you knew people were talking about you, wouldn't you want to know what they're saying?
Absolutely.
Like, I just think it's like a really human thing. And like, of course, people, whenever you like sort of, it becomes clear that you've done that. Like, they're like, oh, like, it's really sad that you've done that. And it's like, bitch, if you were in my position, I guarantee you would do it at least for a minute. And like, I haven't done it in a couple of weeks and I'm really proud of myself. And it's really disorienting because, especially when I have shit that's airing or like when I have stuff that like, I know people are responding to, it's really difficult for me not to want to go and look at like, see what, people are saying about me or it. And like, it's a very disorienting couple of weeks to like, be disconnected from that for the first time in several years.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's a healthier way to be. I definitely I mentally am so much better off for it.
Yes, because people are unhinged and then they'll tell you you're unhinged.
Yeah.
Because also it's the hard part because it's like everyone's projecting, but then they're being mean and then saying you're a certain way. And I think also when it comes to like looking up yourself on the internet and the world and everyone's like, just don't look at them or you're looking at it too much. One, guess what? When anybody's feeling down and they're hearing the girls at school are talking about them, they want to know. And also when anyone's feeling left out, they want to know. So, and you have a button you can press when you're feeling low, of course. And at the same time, you are a comedian who does need to know because you need to be able to be aware of what people are saying so you don't get on stage and completely step over the giant elephant.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's tough. So I'm proud of you for balancing that because I get like even professionally why you would look.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Switch to Verizon Business and get more from your internet without paying more for your internet. Get LTE Business Internet starting at $39 a month when paired with select business mobile plans. That's unlimited data, and with it, unlimited possibilities. Start saving today with Verizon Business, ranked #1 in small business internet customer satisfaction by J.D. Power. Starting price for 25 megabits per second LTE internet plan with smartphone plan savings, plus taxes, fees, and economic adjustment charge. Terms apply. For J.D. Power 2024 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
Okay, we're hopping back in. We're on the horn with we're hopping back into process, and I love how reflective you are and like emotional your work is, but vulnerable at the same time. And I don't know, I think we could dance into Fire Island because like each individual career you have, that individual person would want that career. Meaning like someone who's a comedian would love your career. Somebody who's a filmmaker would love your career. Somebody who's an actor. Like you've been on Network and Sunnyside on acting in one. You've also made your own movie. You know what I mean? You're also on Lou as like acting. And like you have all these wonderful facets to your career and identity. And I don't know, I think of you obviously as a stand-up, but when it comes to your creation and what you like to do, is there one that like was like, oh, this was just an into this? Or is it like all of it is telling you something that you need to know?
I think it's all of it is like servicing a part of my creative like needs.
Yeah.
I think because I use a very different part of my brain to write a script than I do when I'm writing a joke for a stand-up. And like it's just servicing. And I think like when I think about Fire Island and when I think about my output as a writer, I'm always like, it's crazy to me because I've sold so many scripts and so many things have almost happened that when Fire Island finally did happen, I was like, oh, I'd sort of given up believing that it would. And then, you know, so many people who've read me and my scripts and have bought them but not put them on the air, I think like see the side of me using, and it's very different than who I present as a stand-up, I think. And I think like I like it. I'm a little offended sometimes, but like I do ultimately really like that sometimes people after seeing the movie are sort of like, wow, I did not expect that.
Yeah.
You know, I did not expect, maybe I expected some of the jokes, but like I didn't expect some of the more emotional parts of it, or like the depth of it, or the structure of it, or like, you know, the connection to Pride and Prejudice. All of these things I think like surprised a lot of people who I forget, because like in my head, I'm a writer first, you know, like that is who I am. And that is where I feel most comfortable. Yeah. And that is where I think a lot of my confidence is. And so it was funny when the movie came out, because so many people just knew me exclusively as a stand-up or as like a little comedic actor that would show up on things, or basically a podcast guest. Like, I think like for a lot of people, I was just that funny comedian that would show up on their favorite podcast every once in a while. And
a lot of people are that, and they are just that. So then for you to be like, I'm not.
Yeah, look at this other thing I can do was really gratifying ultimately. And, you know, it is sort of the most self-actualized I've ever felt was doing that movie, and, you know, wearing all those different hats for it, and really feeling like I was, you know, in tandem with Andrew on the director, but like really like spearheading that project creatively. And it felt really, I don't know, I want to do it again so bad. I've been trying to get other stuff made now for the last 3 years, and it's just a really difficult time. And so, you know, I'm really like, my soul needs to be fed, and it needs to be fed by starring and writing and producing another movie.
Hey, we all have different diets.
Yeah.
Well, it does. And what I admire about you is like you are a grind, right? Like you don't, and I think that's sometimes hard for people to wrap their head around when they're like asking or even listening in on this, to be like, what part of the process could I be inspired by? Like, it's not like you did this thing and you're like, what else could I make? It's like you are at all times doing all of these things, and like at all times making and all times doing. And there are quote unquote irons in the fire and ones you would like to get made, but nothing is stopping another thing from happening.
No. And I think like it really comes down to like, I have always had to work a lot, because that's just like the reality of my life. And especially my early life, I was working like practically 50 hours a week at a startup, and then doing open mics at night and shows at night. And that was like just the reality for me. Yeah. And I was like, you know, using my lunch breaks to write. And like, you know, I was doing a lot of freelance essay writing back when the internet was full of like publications that would publish, like, as essays, The Toast. And like, we see. Yeah. And like, I was doing so much of that at work too, and finding little moments throughout the day to do that. And then going out at night and like finding times to write at night. You know, it was just like, I actually feel quite lazy these days, because
you have a normal work
and like
now.
And it's funny, I just have a lot more downtime now. Yeah. And my partner is so funny, because I'm always like, oh, I feel so lazy today, and he's like, you've done 3 times as much as a normal person usually does in their day. Yeah. But I've always been really proud of my work ethic. It's one of the things that my parents really instilled in me early. And like, listen, I haven't taken a dime of my parents' money since I was 17. And it's the cornerstone of my personality now, like it is like,
and you're going to hear about it.
yeah, it's just like, that is like the thing I think I'm most proud of is like everything I have now, I have because I worked really hard for it.
Yeah.
And that's not to discount anyone who was lucky enough to have a relationship with their parents who did help them in small or big ways. But like,
no, it's something that is a point of pride for you.
Yeah, it's a point of pride for me. And it's like, I just never thought I would be able to do this from writing or stand up or acting or any of this. Like, it's really like the hardest thing about Fire Island was was like, oh, if I do one thing in this life, I want to do that. And that will never happen probably. So, keep on dreaming, keep that on the pedestal. And then it happens. And then you suddenly have to move the goalposts.
Yes.
Move goalposts that you never in your
step up to the
entire
standard
life
you've set. Yeah.
thought you would ever have to move because you never thought you would achieve the thing where the goalpost was. And that's a really difficult thing. I mean, it's a champagne problem, certainly, but it is just like, I don't know what I've already achieved more than I ever thought I would when I was in my early 20s, which is great. But now I'm like, what do I do now? And like,
dreaming
what is a
becomes
reasonable
interesting
goal
then.
to set for myself?
Yeah.
Because it's like, I don't want to dream too big. I don't want to set myself up for failure.
Or past what I even want because I'm just trying to literally get bigger. Yeah.
No. I mean, I'll say this. Like, I don't ever want to be as famous as Bowen.
No, that's a lot of work.
It seems like hell, to be honest. I know he's very happy ultimately with like his success and like gratified in his his own success and like, happy.
But it's a different lifestyle when people are.
I think I know, we've talked about this, like both of us like have achieved more than I think we ever thought we would when we were like babies in New York talking after a bar show, like it's crazy. But like, I'm very happy with the level of success that I have right now. Like, I'm able to live the kind of life that I want and provide the kind of life I want for my partner. And I'm very lucky that like, I'm able to do for the most part, what I want to do creatively. But do I need to be any more public facing than I am right now? Absolutely fucking
That's
not.
why I think people can hear that though, because when it means like level up to like the standard you've set, it doesn't need to look like what you're told is bigger. Like it doesn't need to be look like, more money or whatever. It can just be more time to daydream. It can be more like, and that can be a huge fucking goal, but it's not talked about as much.
And a huge fucking luxury.
Yes.
Like the fact that I'm going to sit in my guest bedroom on the comfy new guest bed that we have and just like think for an hour, unheard of for most people, like it just like is crazy, and not feel guilty about it either because I've done a lot already today.
In fact, that's in service of something still. Like it's like that like I adore that. I also think one distinction I want to make that I think is so important because a lot of times, right, I think it's good if you kind of throw away the dream like it's never going to happen because it gives a sort of fuck it energy. But a lot of folks say that'll never happen for me. Yes. But you still wrote the script. You still did the thing. It wasn't that'll never happen for you, so I won't even try it. It was like, but I still have this dream. And like you still honored the feeling. Like I remember so vividly this Facebook post of you at Jacob Rees' speech and you had read Crime and Punishment. And it was like, I think it was like 2015.
Pride and Prejudice.
Oh, why do I keep saying that? It's
I don't know.
It's dyslexia.
And it was actually on Fire Island.
Was it
that
Fire Island?
That from Fire Island. Yeah,
maybe we had just gone to Reese the week before.
It was that first trip.
Was it the first trip?
That I was talking about.
Yeah. So you posted. Do you remember this? You posted a picture of the book, and you were like, "I want to make this gay. I want like." You were like, it essentially. I'm absolutely butchering it, but
No. That was the essence of the post. It was like, I'm going to do this, but as a bit, basically.
But I loved the post because I'm earnest, and I know you enough. Even if it was like a bit, I was like, "Oh, well, my brilliant like artistic friend," and I loved it because it was like, "Yeah, he's gonna do that." It wasn't like, here's a pie in the sky, whatever. I just kind of knew you were going to do that because you said it.
Well, and the improbability of it happening, I think was like made me even more like, I don't know, sort of like fuck it about like the process of writing that. Because like when, I had this show that was in development at Fox and then it was in development at Comedy Central, and that was like 2 years of my life and nothing came from it. And my reps were
You
sort
worked
of
also,
like,
can I just want to say for everyone, you filmed, you worked so hard, you cast it. This is some bullshit. I could burn a company to the ground for that
it's
one.
crazy. And now I'm way too old to ever do that again.
I know.
But that part anyways, but I have dreams for it living on in some way with someone else.
Yeah.
But my thing is that like, it just felt so improbable that like when my reps were like, okay, this show is not going to happen, unfortunately. You need to start ideating on what your next thing is. And like Birthright, the show that I sold, it was a packaged show that it was like me. I was like, what's the most marketable thing that I can present myself that's still true to me, but also like thinking about like what's sellable, what's producible, what's like that. And when I wrote Fire Island initially as a half-hour spec pilot, I was like so angry that my show hadn't gone, that I had wasted almost 2 years of my life, wasted quote unquote 2 years of my life developing this thing that never happened. I was like, fuck it. What is the thing what's top of mind? What do I actually want to do? Like, what's the kind of show that I actually want to make? And it was Fire Island. And it just, again, it was me being like, fuck it. Like, I'm going to just do what I want to do to the nth degree. And if someone wants it, then someone wants it. It was sort of like I was like sort of presenting it as a new sample. And then nobody wanted it until Quibi, which is crazy.
Oh, Quibs, the footprint on all of us that Miss Quibs gave.
But like I owe them a debt. I
lot
really
of people
do. Like
do.
Say what you will about Quibi, flop. But like the creative execs there, they were willing to take big swings that other networks were not willing to take because they were the new kids on the block. And so I'm really grateful for them for, giving me the initial platform to make this movie that eventually, like, them shuttering was kind of the best thing that ever happened to me. But
I would almost ask even logistically, because when people get told no, right? Like, yeah, it can be like, I'm going to show you or whatever, but it can also be like so depressing and exhausting after 2 years of your life. So like in that moment, was it like a month of depression, or was it like next Monday, I'm on my laptop and I need to write something new? Like, how did you process that to be able to move on?
It was like pretty much immediate.
Really?
I need to start writing something else.
Wow.
And like, I'm sort of going through a similar thing with my next movie right now, where I'm sort of like, it's been 3 years since I sold this movie, and I don't know what the future holds.
I thought you were getting
at this
directors.
point.
That's annoying. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I do.
Yeah.
I'm like very far in the process, but
Yeah.
it's like still like making a movie is a very long process. And so I'm already working on my next thing because I'm like,
Wow.
I got to start writing something else, because if this doesn't happen,
Yeah.
I don't want to be caught with my pants down with nothing else to be moving forward with.
Yeah.
So, I've got a lot of irons in the fire, but like I'm already like working on the next screenplay, because I'm like, I thought I'd be able to like make this movie and then chill for a second, but I'm sort of like, I don't know when this movie is going to get made. I hope it gets made, but I need to start trying to sell something else in the meantime.
And in the same way, taking your eyes sort of off the boiling pot in a way, where it's like the energy is less
know that
focused on it. And that's helpful no matter what, even if this new screenplay means nothing or means the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that's important when it comes to just energetically with your projects, not giving them up. It's just like, stop like focusing on its viability outside of the creation, which is so hard to do because that's livelihood.
Yeah. No, it was easier when I wasn't successful, because it was just a dream, and it was easy. The stakes felt lower, in a lot of ways, because it was like, okay, I can, I'll probably be working this day job until I'm 30. And, so it's like a pipe dream.
But then you got Forbes 30 under 30, bitch.
Just squeaked in there right at 29. Yeah. And so I think like it just feels there's like a lot more pressure, because it's like, no one wants to be a one-hit wonder. No one wants to be remembered for one thing. And like, I'm really glad that, Fire Island is meaningful to a lot of people, and like, especially like this month, I get a lot of people tagging me and who are watching it, and that's always very sweet. And I really like, I'm in a really, good company with a pantheon of like gay movies that people really, are touchstones for a lot of people. And it's really hard for me to even say that because I just know I'm like very much always focused on who hates the thing that I've just done.
Sure. And also they're projecting.
I am the person who will scroll across 100
really
positive YouTube comments and then get to the negative one. And that's the one that
do you go to their
I will
profile?
Then turn to my partner. Sometimes. But like it's always so funny because John Michael is such a corrective for this because I'll turn to him and I'll be like, everyone hated X thing. And then he'll go and look at the comments and he'll literally collate the data and he'll be like, three people technical. Out of 376 people had a negative thing to say about this clip. You are insane.
I love our sweet
you're being crazy
video game building mind that maps out the world.
Oh my God. He was in line to get the Switch 2 last night.
Was he really?
And he made so many friends because he was timing the intervals. They were in a strip mall waiting at Best Buy, and there was a line around the strip mall. And there was a TJ Maxx and Nordstrom and a Michael's in between him and the Best Buy in this line.
Oh my God.
And he timed how long it took to get from the TJ Maxx to the Nordstrom, and then how long it took the Nordstrom to the Michaels. And he became known as the numbers guy in the line because he was like, actually, the line is moving faster now. It took us 30 minutes to get from TJ Maxx to Nordstrom.
How
it's only
soothing
taken us
would this be?
15 minutes
How
to get to
soothing.
from Nordstrom to Michaels. And so people would literally, as they were moving, every time they move up a little in line, they'd literally go, "Hey, numbers guy, how are we doing?" And I was just like, if I couldn't love him anymore.
He's and also like listeners, he also
more.
Like imagine the numbers guy is also the dreamiest, tall, handsomest man you've ever seen. It is, and it's so endearing. Yeah. It's so fun. Like, oh,
and he like somebody like he made friends with this 10-year-old girl in line whose stickers got banned at her school, and then she was like, she asked one of the group that they were standing with, it was like all adult men. And then this 10-year-old girl.
I love her.
And she asked if they played this Hello Kitty game. And one guy, I guess, was like kind of shitty about it and sarcastically answered like, "Oh yeah, I love that game." And before he could like be like, I was being sarcastic or like explain him the joke, John Michael and like 3 other adults around were like lied and were like, "Oh, I love that game. It's one of the best games ever," because they wanted to make this 10-year-old girl like feel good
and
about her
beat
taste
the villain and beat
like,
the villain
taste and beat the villain. And again, like he was telling me this, and it just like I couldn't love him anymore.
That's so sweet.
Because that's just who he is. Like he's gonna make the 10-year-old girl feel good about her taste level by lying to her about the Hello Kitty game.
As he should.
And he's gonna make that guy feel like shit.
That 40-year-old loser who's bullying a child.
Yeah, exactly.
But I also do love your partnership with him too, because I do think like, I don't know, I think he is such an anchor and foil, and I think all of us as artists, the people around us are a direct influence on our art. And he's like a wonderful person who lets you to explore and discover what you need to work on.
Yeah, and it's like it's just nice to have someone not in the industry who's like a very grounding presence. I met him too before all of this started to blow up in my life, which I'm really grateful for. Because like when we went to the Emmys, like you get to a certain point in this industry where like you get invited to you're nominated for an Emmy, but like you get there and it's like no longer cool to care. Yeah. Like if you are nominated for an Emmy, like cool. you're supposed to be there and sort of like, yeah, whatever, this is my job, I'm here, like.
Can't wait to get out of this dress.
He got that vibe from me, and it was nice to have someone in my life who was like, "Hey, actually, no, you've wanted this your entire life. This is really fucking cool that you're here. Like, allow yourself to enjoy this rather than trying to like pretend like it's no big deal and be Mr. Cool Guy." And I'm so grateful that I have that kind of voice in my life, because I think that if I wasn't dating him or engaged to him, like I would enjoy my life significantly less because I wouldn't have someone there reminding me that like it's okay to find things meaningful, to feel how you feel. To find success meaningful. And like and unabashedly so. Like I'm not making him feel bad by like talking about my own successes, and like I have someone in my life who's genuinely happy
secure
for
support.
My successes. Yeah.
Which is so heavily. We're kind of getting in the zone, but we're to the end segment, which is called "Thank You for Holding My Poems," and it is inspired by the Russian poet Anna Akhmatova, who during the Great Terror, it was illegal to publish poems of revolution. So her and her, creative collaborators came up with the Gutenberg system, and it's where fellow artists and friends memorized edits of every one of their poems and held them, and in their messiness, in their unfinishedness, in their first drafts, over 30 years. And it's so moving to me because I think we as artists hold each other's poems, right? Like an open mic can be a poem because it's like you're trying a bad set and you're figuring it out and we're all witnessing it and still loving you through it. Or to me, also a compliment from a barista can be a poem because you have no idea what I'm going through. And like someone being human with me just changed my life. And now I can go make my art. And so I would love for you, whatever comes to mind when I speak about these sort of abstract poems, to share a moment that means a lot to you, that had an impact on you, or that you want us to hold you in. And I would love for that.
Yeah, I would say this is a very recent one. It happened yesterday. But when I read that question, when your producer was prepping me, it's the first thing that came to mind because it was like, I am at this place now, right now, where I'm really like, unsure of myself as like a stand-up. It's harder now than it ever has been because I think like, I don't know, my life is just less interesting in a lot of ways than it was when I was struggling working 2 jobs and, in New York and had no money. It was just a lot of material and single, for that matter. Unfortunately, I'm very happy in my relationship, so there's not as much material as you would hope.
See, this is already
being
funny.
in a relationship. Yeah. But I did a show. It was a fundraiser for this Democratic organization in Santa Monica. I drove to Santa Monica and the show was at 6 p.m. I drove
Did
to
you
Santa
leave
Monica
at 3?
during rush hour traffic.
Yeah, did you have to leave at 3?
No, I did leave like an hour and a half early, but it was and I was like, oh, I don't know, like the cadence of when I do stand up is so much different than it was 10 years ago for me. I was like, back then I was going up 3 times a night and now I go up like a couple times a week at most. And so I feel a little on shaky ground with myself as like, and my material as a stand up, but I did this set and it went well, it's a short set. And as I was being walked out by security, I had a security detail at this thing. And the security guard was like, thank you so much. I've been listening to like dry ass speakers talk all day at this conference, like watching these white rich people like try and figure out how to save America. And it's all bullshit. And then I watched your set and he was like, I laughed so hard. I gave myself a cramp that I cannot get rid of. And I don't know. And this guy was like, probably a little bit older than me. Like a black guy who lives in Santa Clarita.
Wow.
And like it was just like for him, like to hear, like, I don't know, like it's straight, very straight.
Yeah.
And he was just like, you were so funny. And that, I don't know, like I just don't hear that from people who don't already know me. Like I'm at a point now where I'm touring. And, when I first started touring in 2016, I would go to these clubs and no one knew who I was, They were just coming to the club, trusting the club would book someone funny. Yeah. And so I would have to come out every night and perform for an audience of mostly straight people, straight white people for that matter, and prove myself over and over again, every single night.
And explain yourself at the same time too.
And explain myself. Yeah. And now I go and I do these shows and they're like sold out and it's great, but it's like chock full of people who love my movie or love me. And there are moments like I had a show in Chicago where I was like, is there a gas leak? Because this isn't that funny. Like,
oh my God, I'm obsessed
I don't
with this.
trust my audiences sometimes because I'm like, and like, granted, like people don't force themselves to laugh for a full hour. Like that's not happening. But I do think people are probably a little bit more charitable with.
Oh, we can feel it. I can feel when they're laughing because they're having fun or they're laughing at my joke.
Yeah. And so like to have a stranger, someone who did not know who I was, had no idea, like I was not brought up with like a list of my resume or anything like that. He was just sort of asking me general questions about like, oh, like how long have you been doing it? And like, do you like it? And like, oh, or, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, I'm still able to make someone like this man laugh.
Yeah. Someone who doesn't even have my cultural pool of references.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and who's like, would not necessarily be seeking out a gay Asian comedian, and so to hear that, it was like a little moment that I really desperately needed. And I don't know if you'll ever know how meaningful it was to hear that because it really like, and we seek out those moments and then those keep us going for like 3 days and then your tank is empty and you're searching for that next thing that's going to keep you going. But yeah, he filled my tank for a couple days, I think.
Oh, he did. That's a perfect poem because it is that heavenly feeling of like, he has no idea. You don't know him. Like he just expressed something. It's like at no point do you know what that's going to mean to someone. Like you don't know what they're going through, what they need it, how you have an impact. And to share your joy or how you made someone feel, it's like so powerful. Like, it's so special.
I realized that I am so liberal. Like I am DMing people constantly. I'm DMing them, congrats on this show. It's so good.
I'm scared for when I book a big thing because then everyone's going to look at their DMs and they're going to have a DM for me being like, you're the specialist person that's ever existed.
Yeah. I just like, I love gassing my girls up.
It's what else is there in this life?
No, and it's like people are so sparing with that sometimes, I think. And I think it's like it comes from a level of competition. It comes from, this, that, or the other thing. But like I am just like, no, this person like made something really great. I'm gonna DM them and let them know how fucking great it was. And I think that I don't know that coming from me, it's always it means anything to some of these people. But I do think that like it is always nice to hear from, especially sometimes your peers, that like, I don't think we gas each other up enough. I just don't think it's
I
happening.
agree because also it's that cool factor where it's like, so it's uncool to be like a fan of your friends. I'm like, what? I'm obsessed with my friends. My friends are the funniest people. Why wouldn't I be like cheering you on? And I think, I think it's nice that you maintain that regardless of whatever's going on because it's and great if someone hates it, which people do. They're like, chill out, like I'm not that great or it wasn't good. Like then we back up. But it's like, just send it. Why not? Why not gas someone up? Because if you feel that way.
And because you don't know what that person is going through in that day, in that moment, and might desperately need that lifeline of like someone seeing them.
Or it's even the bystander effect where everyone assumes they're getting congratulated and then maybe people don't. And it's like, just share it.
It's like, do I need to really send Benito Skinner yet another DM that he's probably inundated with DMs? And I was like, no, I think it's really, I know how fucking hard it is to get something made in this town, especially something gay. I am going to send the DM. And because it's regardless of if he's hearing it from all angles, which I know he is, but like.
As he should. This is a perfect example. That is a perfect example because it is widely celebrated. So it's like, yes, say it still, because don't just say it when it's in the dumps. Say it when it's celebrated as well, because it's like that means something. That really does.
Yeah.
That's another poem. Double poem day. I could share a million poems about you because I love you and I think you're perfect in every way. But yeah, this is sort of the end. Can you tell our listeners where they can find you or what they can look for?
Yeah, they can find me on Instagram, no longer on Twitter, thank God. It's the best thing I ever did.
God hacked you. Is how I feel.
Russians.
I feel God hacked you to get you out of there.
Yeah, no, truly. But Instagram at I Hate Joel Kim. I'm always posting about what I'm doing next and, shows and tour dates and whatever I have coming out. So follow me there if you want to be updated on what my life looks like.
Do you remember when I just found out it was I Hate Joel Kim?
No.
We were on the beach and I was tagging. It was like you, me, and Max Witter, and maybe Sam tag, and I was tagging us all on a beach photo. This is years ago, and I kept trying to find your handle. I was like, Joel is not coming up. It is not coming up. And then Max grabs the phone and starts dying laughing because I kept writing I Heart Joel Kim.
Oh, that's so funny. You couldn't even bring yourself to type it.
I couldn't. I won't ever. Well, I end each pod by giving my listeners and you a compliment and know that I think that adjectives are gender free. And I say, oh my God, you're so pretty.
Oh, I love it.
I love you.
You are too.
I love you. Worse Than You with Mo Fry Pasick is hosted by me, Mo Fry Pasick. You can learn more about this week's guest and the Worse Than You team by checking out the show and episode copy. Worse Than You with Mo Fry Pasick is executive produced by Erica Ghetto, Mariah Gossett, and Lauren Mandel for Good Get and Disco Nap Productions. Oh my God, you're so pretty.
I get so much done when I fly New York to LA. Like being in that little tube for 4 to 6 hours, I'm just like, I'm not distracted by anything. I get so much done.
I feel very safe up there. Do you know what I do? Do you know what like brown noise is, like jet noise or whatever? On the jet, I play brown noise.
Interesting.
It's so soothing. It's so soothing. I recommend it.